Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Golf and Politics. This is episode number 7, and we have a great episode for you. We have Gerard Burke. He's the CEO of Ireland Travel Links. He puts together bucket list golf trips for people in Ireland and Scotland. He's had a relationship with Rob Ellsworth for many years. Rob, you've been, 9 times on one of Gerard's trips? And then when you and I go in September to Ireland, that will be number 10. Is that correct?
It will be, and it's going to be a special one in Northwest Ireland. We're going to play Ballybunion, which is my favorite links course in Ireland, and I know it's Gerard's favorite links course as well. And then we're going to be going up into some uncharted territory for me, and definitely for the whole group, up to Carn and Enniscrone, County Sligo, St. Patrick's. There's a new Tom Doak course that has just opened up that's supposed to be fantastic. We'll also be playing Donegal and Nairn and Portneuf. So it's going to be a special trip this September, and I'm sure we'll probably host a show from there as well.
Well, without further ado, let's get started. Gerard, thank you for joining us all the way from Ireland. What time is it right now in Ireland?
It is 9:15 here in Ireland, and the sun is still out, so it's still bright. We have daylight, as Rob will tell you, when he was in Scotland with us recently, up until 11 o'clock at night. So,
wow.
You can go out there, as we did at 20 past 6, and played the old course in St. Andrews and finished at close to 11 o'clock, and we still had daylight. So it's amazing. We almost get another day, when the regular person finishes work at 5 p.m. there's almost another day left, and it's too bright to sleep. So you either, go play golf or you go to the pub, one or the other.
Or both.
Or both. Yeah, exactly.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
Jared, I wanted to ask you the difference between private golf clubs in the United States and private clubs in Ireland and Scotland. In the U.S., it's very, elite. It's tough to get in. You have to have multiple sponsors. It's very expensive. Can you tell us the difference about the private golf experience in Ireland and Scotland?
Yeah. Well, as you say, in the US, it's a private club is a different thing to a private club in Ireland. So you take Ballybunion is essentially a private club. We extend, green fees Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 1:30 or 2 p.m. every day, because most Irish people are working, and like I said about the long evenings, they can play golf, like, from 2:30 onwards during the day, and you still have a very long day. So, but it would be different to what it is in the US. A private club in Ireland versus a private club in the US is essentially we're like, a local members club, where everybody basically lives within a reasonably close proximity to the golf course, and you do have a lot of members who live a little further afield, and then we would have a lot of maybe international members as well. But I suppose we're basically a club in the sense of a club. We have it's a very kind of close-knit community. It's very important to the surrounding area, that benefits from it. Unlike maybe a private club in the US, where I've been to some of them, where I might be down the road at the gas station filling up fuel and say, "Where were you playing golf today?" I might mention the name and say, "I've never heard of it," So it's a completely different thing, a completely different meaning over here, I suppose. And I suppose we're, with tradition as well, it goes back so far, and we are, a lot of our courses like Ballybunion are over 100 years old, and it's been members and generations of families who have played there for forever, and that's, I suppose, that's kind of the type of club that we are. You know, we're a homely type of members, you know, club, and even though we'd be classed as a private club, but you know, wouldn't be the same as what you'd have in the US for sure.
Well, and the benefit of what I prefer about the way golf is in Ireland and Scotland, beyond the links and the sandy soil that makes for great golf, is that your business and how you bring over a group of 4 or 8 or 12, let's say, Americans to come to Ireland or Scotland, you can line up the very best championship courses in the country and arrange it so that they can play all of them in a week or 10 days. In the US, that could never happen. They would never I mean, you couldn't go to the Hamptons and get a group of golfers from Ireland on National Golf Links and Shinnecock and Maidstone. They would never allow it. And I think that's part of the beauty of your system and your setup. But also, you know, you don't have to be incredibly wealthy to join your local club. Like,
Correct.
you could be the town electrician or the town plumber. And I was reading about a few courses in Scotland, like London and Leven, where the town electrician is invited to be a member and just provides his trade or service to the club.
Mhm.
I mean, can you talk a little bit about the difference of the membership and how members can have their own set times, but also, you know, tourists can come and play and help with the finances of the club?
Correct. Yeah. So as you say, Rob, like it's you know, you mentioned about access, and these clubs are very accessible, and as you say, they're not as easy to do the same thing in a private club in the US. So, you know, our membership then is based on, you know, what we take in revenue from green fees in, say, from the US, primarily from early or from late April until early October. You know, these clubs like Ballybunion will be taking in a few million in green fees, which, you know, goes a long way towards, more than a long way towards the running of the club, and hence it reduces the sub, you know, that the member has to play. So we enjoy, you know, very low subs in our club. Like, as a result of that, we are heavily subsidized by green fees, and of course one could argue we make the sacrifice, but you know, maybe is it really a sacrifice? But you know, that we allow green fees Monday to Friday up until, you know, for 5 or 6 hours every day, and the benefits we enjoy from that are that, you know, it reduces, you know, the expense of being a member, but also gives us the wonderful opportunity of pouring more money back into the course and and in the clubhouse and in the surrounding area. You know, it really benefits, and as I said earlier, it benefits the town or where you live in, the restaurants, the people who are involved in the golf industry, the caddies, the people who work on the golf courses. Like, it's hugely beneficial for us, you know, to have that. And if you're lucky enough, like we are, and having a name like a Ballybunion or a Lahinch or a Tralee, you know, well then, you know, you really are, um, you know, on the pig's back, as we'll say. You know, you're doing well.
Walk us through quickly a little bit about Ireland Travel Links, um, how long you've been running the business, and then really, like, let's say you've got 8 of our viewers who've never played in Ireland that would like to go set up a trip. Walk them through what that process looks like, because a lot of folks have no idea where to begin.
Mhm. Mhm.
They might know which courses they've heard
Yeah.
of, but
Mhm.
they wouldn't know where to begin and how to put a trip together. So just give us a little bit about what it is that your team does.
Yeah. Well, as you say, Rob, like they have some idea maybe where they might like to play, you know, and you have to help them along in the sense that, you know, I want to play a Ballybunion, or I want to play a Lahinch, or I want to play a Waterville. They will have heard sometimes from other people, oh, this is where we went, this is where you got to go. So they'll know, they'll be familiar maybe with some of the bigger courses, but then they'll leave it up to you. So where else should we go? And how long a trip should it be? Usually it's somewhere between 5 and 7 days, and a lot of times people will try and come in maybe on a on a like tied in like a weekend, leave on a late on a Friday night, so they can take in Saturday and Sunday, because time is precious to people who work in the, who have busy lives and what have you. And getting away on a trip like that is a very big thing, and putting a group of guys together is a big thing as well, and making sure they all get along. And which is very important. But I think the nice part, for Americans that come over here, they come over on a red eye flight. They can leave at 7 o'clock in the evening. They can be here at 8 or 9 in the morning. Then they can play golf that day. But also every day they play golf. Like if they get an early tea time, like by the time they're done at 12 or 1 o'clock, like America is only waking up, so they can look at their phones and check their emails, and they don't have that distraction in the morning while they're playing golf. It's just a wonderful thing. Like, and as one guy quoted me one time, I play golf in Ireland in the morning, and then, after I finish, the world wakes up and screws everything up. But they have that little bit of a buffer, where they can just enjoy life for a while, like with no distractions whatsoever. So for us, what we do is we try and make it as, as painless as possible for them to play all the nice courses, number one, and try and get them early tee times. And sometimes they'll play, like Rob there, they'll play 36 in a day, if they're up for it. And, we do everything for them. Like we plan their accommodations, their golf courses, and where they go to eat and where they go to drink. So we try to make sure they don't have to do any thinking whatsoever. Only just be there, just show up. Organize our caddies for them and everything. And just have everything prepared, basically, because like I say, in a lot of cases, a big trip for a lot of people, and and sometimes they're not sure what to expect, but they may have heard from others. But we try to just make it as pleasurable as possible for them, and we do try to make sure that the weather is good too. It doesn't always work out that way, but I think most Americans, they'd be disappointed if it didn't rain somewhere along the trip. They'd be saying, and that does happen from time to time as well. Not very
Well,
often.
well, Gerard, I am coming in September with Rob, and I
Mhm.
am literally giddy about it and thinking about it every day, and very excited to come in. And I just bought rain gear this morning, and I
That was a good
expect to use
idea.
it while I'm there.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about the difference in American golf versus Irish golf and Scottish golf, in the sense of so many American courses are built and you can't walk them. They are
Hmm.
golf cart only.
Hmm.
There's so much
Hmm.
space between holes, and not
Yeah.
taking away from some of the breathtaking courses that we have that you have to ride. But
Hmm.
tell us just a little. In addition to the fact that there's not as much golf cart usage in Ireland and
Yeah.
Scotland, what are some other big differences between American golf and Scottish and Irish golf?
Well, I suppose the big difference would be, here it's all about, like we'll say, yardages aren't as like we a lot of courses would be sub 7,000 yards. Like in the US, they'd be a lot more than 7,000 yards. And as you said, there's a lot of walking between greens and tees. But for us, it's all about the weather, the wind. The wind makes everything longer and more difficult, because wind is always prevalent in Ireland. So and it's and then if we're talking about like links courses, which are primarily on the water, and the term links comes from the land that links the foreshore and the inland, known as the link land, and that's where the term comes from, because it's sand, and then before it becomes turns into soil. So they're always coastal. They were known as seaside golf. Like that's what it started off as. English people came, and some of the more affluent Irish people that could only play. I mean, it was a very kind of a affluent sport back in the day in Ireland, when it was only really people who could afford to play it, and there was a snob value to it as well. And so people came to towns and resorts like Ballybunion and Lahinch, and they would come and they would rent a house and they would stay there for a couple of weeks, and they play golf. And but going back to your question about people coming from the US playing golf, it's the challenge of links golf is what really brings them. And I quote the great Tom Watson, you have to invent some of your own shots, and Rob knows all about that, and how to hit the ball low, and can't hit it very high. And so the challenge of links golf is what really, really, entices people to come to Ireland to play golf. That different set of challenges that you're not going to get like in a beautiful tree line course with maybe some lakes with little or no wind. And that's like when Tom Watson played links golf first. He didn't really, he by his own volition, he didn't actually like links golf, but as he said, he learned how to like it, and he learned how to play it, and he came to places like Ballybunion to practice for the British Open, and which stood him in great test, that he did practice before he went, to play these great Scottish courses and that. So that's the challenge. And people like Tom Watson would have advocated that over the years, and 5-time British Open winner, a legend in the game of golf, and the great Bobby Jones coming over here. People who just come and wanted just to see what this challenge of links golf is all about. That's what brings them here.
Well, Tom Watson has a special place in all of our hearts, but especially Rob's heart. I mean, his English bulldog is named after Tom Watson.
Yes, yeah.
Which kind of leads me to the next question. I mean, Tom Watson has said publicly that Ballybunion is the best golf course in the world. Now, that is a massive statement.
It is. It is.
Do you agree with that statement?
Of
Disagree
course
with that statement? I know you do, but tell me why you agree with it, and get me more excited to come to Ireland in September.
I had the great privilege of playing with him when I was captain in 2006, which seems like a lifetime ago. And when you're playing with such a legend in golf, like you stand in awe, and you ask him questions, and without bugging him too much, and you ask him like in a nice roundabout way, why did you say Ballybunion was, in your mind, like, one of the best golf course in the world? Because that was a fair accolade for us to receive, and you don't give out these accolades lightly. And he said to me, in Ballybunion, it's all about the second shot, and he said, it's the most demanding and testing second shot I've ever experienced, and that's what makes it great for me, he said. And I mean, I've been playing this course and caddying here all my life, and I never quite thought about it. I knew the second shot was always difficult, but now that you mention it, yeah, that does make sense, But I think it takes somebody like that, like Sandy Tatum, his lifelong friend, former USGA president, Rhodes Scholar, who had been telling Tom Watson, like, for a lot of years, you got to come to Ballybunion. And he was the one who ultimately encouraged him to come. And he said, there is no finer golf course. And eventually when he got him to come, and he came in the early 80s, and, when Americans were as scarce as hen's teeth, let me tell you, we owe a great debt of gratitude to Tom Watson for endorsing our course, and every other course around the area benefited from it as well, and for saying what he said about Ballybunion. We cannot thank him enough, for what he said. But here's a man who knows what he's talking about, and even though other writers have written great things, but you don't get the same effect when somebody as famous as Tom Watson, when he says something like that, it's people take it as gospel.
Well, I will add something to that if it's possible. It certainly is not as big of a compliment as what Tom Watson could give, but I think the 11th hole at Ballybunion is the best par 4 in the world, and a close second would be, is it the 17th?
The 17th,
downhill
yeah,
downhill right to left.
yeah.
And then after that, I would have to say number 13 at Pine Valley
Yeah,
and number 8 at Pebble Beach.
yeah.
Would be, in my view, the best par fours in the world, and I've played almost all of them. So
You
I,
know,
I feel
yeah.
I feel qualified to give an opinion.
And I,
But
you are
tell us a little bit.
well qualified to give that opinion, Rob. To be fair, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the town of Ballybunion, and there's a certain famous statue that we need to take Matt to visit
Oh
before
yeah,
we
we
have
have to
pictures
take
there.
him. We have to take him to visit. Yeah. So what Rob is talking about there, Matt, is we've had many famous visitors over the years, including Mr. Ellsworth as well. And, but one such was Mr. Bill Clinton, who was president of the United States, and he came to visit our town. Now, this was an absolutely huge thing. He initially, when he was coming to the G8 summit, that got cancelled or something happened, and we were all a bit disappointed. But then a year or two later, it all happened, and things looked a bit more serious. And so he came to Ballybunion, and this was humongous. Like this was like the president of the United States is coming to Ballybunion, to our town, to our golf course. And and we have a statue, as Rob says, to him in front of the local police station, just to keep him safe. And he is standing there, as you'll see, in a pose like addressing his tee shot, and there is a ball that sometimes goes missing,
Okay.
and it is it's screwed down, but as people say, like the ball has been stolen on several occasions but returned. And then at weekends when all the revelers are in town, you will see many items of apparel on his personage, usually female items of apparel. So when the Democrats come to town, they marvel at this, of course, and this is a great thing for them to see. Sometimes the Republicans are not so happy about it.
That's great.
But I think they get over that fact. But that visit was just an amazing time. I was involved in the club at the time. I was on the board, and you'll never forget a visit like that. And the townspeople actually, had a big thing. They were all waiting for him, and on that particular day, they made a sudden detour, and they didn't go up to the town, and they came straight to the golf course, played golf. He was in the members' locker room, and everyone in the town had waited for 4 or 5 hours, and word got out that he may not be coming. The men in black may have said, no, we're not going up there, whatever. And then someone got word to him to say, the whole of Ballybunion, it's a small town, it's a seaside resort, it's 17 or 1800 people. And people from all around, came and queued up, and, so true to the guy, testament to the guy, he said, well, then let's go up and visit Ballybunion. So the cavalcade left Ballybunion Golf Club and went up and kissed babies and shook hands with people and what have you. And so it was just, the whole trip then just became a memorable occasion. He came back again actually after he was president, and he played our second course, the Cashin course. And so there developed a love of Ballybunion. And one great story that I have about that, if I'm permitted to tell it.
Go
Yes.
for it.
And so when he was, when he knew he was coming to Ballybunion, he sent for a Ballybunion hat, and he wanted all to know as much about Ballybunion as he possibly could. And a couple of weeks before he came, Tom Watson happened to be in Ballybunion, and word got to Bill Clinton, Tom Watson is in Ballybunion, maybe if you want to give him a call. And he goes, I got to call Tom Watson. I got to ask him for some tips or whatever. So he rings the golf club anyway, and or the aide rang, and they were asked if Tom Watson was there, and to be told that, well, Mr. Watson was here, but they have left and they're gone up to the town of Ballybunion to a bar. And the aide asked, could you tell us the name of the bar? And it was called the Exchange Bar. And so they got the number, and the aide rang the bar where Tom Watson was. And she said, I am so-and-so. I'm, an aide at the White House here. And I'm calling to see if I can talk to Mr. Tom Watson, because I need to arrange a conversation with him and our president, Mr. Clinton. And the bar lady, she said, "Oh, she was English, she said, oh, pull the other leg," she said, and she hangs up. So anyway, they called back again about 2 minutes later, said, "No, this is really serious. I need to contact Mr. Tom Watson." And she said, "No, if you call again, I am going to call the cops," she said. "No, don't call this number again." So Bill Clinton never got to talk to Tom Watson, but it's a good story. And it's part of the folklore in Ballybunion, with all these famous people that we had. And sometimes, people add to the story a little bit and embellish it a little bit, as well. So
Well, you're going to get a chance. I mean, you've seen Bill Clinton at Ballybunion, Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy. You've played with Tom Watson. You have Matt Parker coming in, not even 2 months from now. What are your tips to Matt
well,
to shooting
Well,
close to
yeah, I'm
par?
an erratic 4 handicap, so
well,
give me my.
I,
Yeah.
I heard that Matt crushes at 350 off the tee, right?
It's only 25% of the time in the fairway, so I need to improve that for sure.
Right. Well, right. Well, if you take my advice and Rob's advice, you may not want to use your driver everywhere, and I suppose the tip I would give you is, keep it on the fairway. I know that sounds very kind of, what
Honestly,
everybody.
I'm actually looking forward to that. Some of the times I play the best golf here in the States is when I play. I grew up in West Virginia. It's a very rolling hills, foothills of the mountains type of place where golf courses just frankly can't be very long.
Mhm.
And some of the best rounds of golf I play is when I don't even pull out my driver and play placement golf. So I'm hoping that my 5-iron and 4-iron hybrid are in good form before I come to Ireland for sure. I imagine I'll be flighting a lot of those off the tee into the wind.
Well, Jared, make sure tell him what not to do on number 1 tee box.
Well, don't hit it in the graveyard in number 1, right?
Right.
By the way,
It's literally dead, right?
Bill Clinton did put it in there, right? And but keeping the ball low, as Rob will tell you, is important. Like keeping it away from the wind. Don't get it up there too high, is really, really important. Yeah.
Well, I've been working. I live in Oklahoma now, so we have a lot of wind here in this part of the country. So it's actually been really helpful for my game, and hopefully some of that can translate. But I'm just absolutely looking forward to having a great time. I'm very interested in this Golfgate scandal that happened in Ireland in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with that at all. Like, I think our listeners would love to hear about that potentially.
I am somewhat familiar with it, yeah. So that's that. I'm interested that you actually know about that.
Well, I do a little research before these episodes.
You certainly do, sir. Well, the Golfgate thing, happened during the the lockdown and what have you. And interestingly enough, I think it was like, golf courses were shut down just like all other sports and what have you. And we kind of used to go, God almighty, we're out walking the golf course every day. Sometimes there's more people out walking the golf course than would be if the course was open and playing. And we used to stick stuff up on Facebook like, this is ridiculous. But of course, golf was sort of seen as an elitist sport, and that if you did it for them, well, then the others are going to go, well, why can't you do it for football
Sure.
and soccer and all the rest of it? So they'd all be up in arms. And then they were having this big political gathering in this, what was the name of the town? I think it was Clifton. And they had this golf game, and they weren't apparently observing COVID practice, shall we say. And so, there were ministers involved and people in the government and what have you, and a few heads rolled as well, as a result of it. And of course, it gathered a lot of pace. Oh my God, here they are, like thinking these golfers, they can do whatever the hell they want, And so it was a massive, massive kind of media thing, in the sense that it went viral. And, actually there was some ministers resigned their positions. And then there was a judge who refused to resign.
Wow.
And he stuck it out, and he never did. And probably he was dead right too at the end of the day, because they kind of made a really big thing out of it. This Golfgate thing, they just kind
Let's
of,
just say the whole world was turned on its head in 2020. There was no
it
question about
was.
that.
It was like, and all people were trying, like, it was like us Irish people, like, we love company. We love like being out with people. We love having a drink. And, um, like here in my own place, we built a barbecue unit. Jesus, we invited the neighbors, like, and were we observing COVID? Well, to a certain extent, maybe we were, but not wholly. But so these politicians were just doing what normal human beings
Sure.
do, and the whole thing just took a life of its own, and it really, they were put under the spotlight, and who, these people supposed to be showing good example to the rest of the country, and here they were out playing golf and enjoying themselves and
Yeah.
drinking, and as we say, and smoking cigarettes and talking to strange women when it wasn't like that. It was just, so like,
Well,
how dare you tell us, like, and we're at home, like, sitting by the fire every evening, and these people are out just having a great time. So yeah, that got. I'm intrigued that you found that out. Actually, that's quite interesting.
well, sticking in politics, Rob and I actually we disagree a lot on politics. There's actually plenty we agree on, but there's a lot that we disagree on. But we're still friends.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, that's becoming less and less normal here in America. Our politics have become very toxic to the point where even Republicans or Democrats within primary elections and within their own party and their own caucuses have tremendous disagreement, and people take it so personally that they are not even friends. I mean, they just cut off each other
Mhm.
and oftentimes get into their own bubble. And one of the reasons we really wanted to do the show to begin with is to say, hey, Rob's a Democrat, I'm a Republican, we don't agree, we love the game of golf, we can still be friends and
Mhm.
disagree vigorously, and these
Mhm.
issues are still important. I get that, but
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that we have to cut each other off and never have a conversation.
Mhm.
Are you get to host a lot of people from around the world, Americans and from many other parts of the world. Do you see golf as a force for bringing people together, or are you seeing a lot of times? I'm sure you overhear political discussions from all over the world. Do you hear a lot of toxicity around that when you're hosting a trip?
Definitely, there's a, like, it's become very polarized politics, and even in this country, it has become a little bit like that because we watch everything that's going on in the U.S. You know, it surprises Americans sometimes how much maybe we know about what's going on in the U.S. in particular, because we're a small country and we look outwardly rather than inwardly. So what happens in the U.S. is very important to us, and it determines a lot of things. And so in my business, you know, and I get a lot of Democrats and a lot of Republicans, and so I have to sort of, you know, ascertain within the first 24 hours what their politics is, and you kind of, steer conversations in certain ways just to find out. And they're lately they're more inclined not to really even go into the subject, which is interesting. Whereas before, when I started off, like, they're happy to tell you're a Democrat, Republican, but they didn't slam the opposition, But it's become more personal, I think, now. But I do believe that golf does bring people together, I think people do put their differences aside, you know, when they come on trips like this, they're. But I think I do notice that Americans are definitely more inclined to stay away from the conversation if at all possible. It's safer not to get into it, you know, and they'll be more polite about it, and they'll say, "Well, we won't talk about that," or whatever, and rather than getting into an argument about it or something like that. But it is, I suppose, yeah, it is interesting because politics has changed dramatically. Not just in the U.S., but has changed dramatically over here as well. We've had local and European elections, and we've had the far right seem to be doing, you know, getting very popular. There's a big swing, but then does the pendulum come back? I don't know, but it certainly is it's an interesting one, because it's interesting because they'll sometimes maybe ask you what you think about our politics, which is interesting too, And all I'll say about that is, like, uh, some of the rhetoric that certain politicians come out with, shall we say, right? Okay, like we'll say, if like politicians in this side of the world, if they cross over a certain line, like that would be them gone within an hour of their career. Like, this is it. It's over. You say anything that's kind of controversial or whatever, like, I mean, your career is over within an hour, literally. And that kind of does surprise us a little bit. You might get away with more maybe in the other side of
It's
the
it's it's
I have
become
no.
it's become who can be the most
Yeah.
controversial and get the most clicks, even in
yeah,
state legislative and local races.
yeah,
It's become, and that's what I do for a living. I do the advertising, and
yeah, yeah.
it just is what it is. Well,
It's all Matt. It's all
it
Matt's
is. It's
fault.
all my
It's all
fault.
Matt's fault.
It's all
Yeah,
my
yeah,
fault.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we have 5 minutes left. What we like to do is, if you want to go out and play an emergency 9 holes of golf, or sometimes I got a shotgun 9 holes of golf. We just like
Yeah.
to ask you some quick questions with quick
Okay.
answers. I'll go ahead and kick it off. If you had to put together your dream foursome,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to play with a professional golfer, a politician, and a celebrity,
Wow.
who would be in those three in
Wow.
your foursome?
Professional golfer, I think, like, okay, so that's a really good question. I mean, would you say professional golfer are kind of somebody who's like
Yeah, living or
living
deceased.
or deceased, right? Okay,
Dream
living or,
foursome.
well, Dreamforce. I suppose I've always been a big fan of Ben Hogan. Like, I suppose I would love to play in his company if that was possible. I read the match, and I was just always intrigued by him.
One of my favorite
And
books.
just there's something mysterious about that guy and his determination. I love that sheer determination of sometimes ending up with nothing and hitching a ride back to Texas and then working menial jobs just to get enough money to enter the next tournament. I just think that is truly amazing.
Yeah.
And so he's one of my great heroes. He would be right in there, definitely. And you said the next one would be a celebrity, is it?
Sure.
Does Rob Ellsworth qualify as a celebrity?
Yeah, in my book, it does.
Yes. The pandering is welcome here.
Okay, I'd be putting Rob in there for sure. So I would, yeah.
Awesome.
And who's my
Politician.
last?
A politician. Living
Pol-
or deceased.
Living or deceased, right? Okay, living or deceased. Well, of course, living or deceased. Of course, I was. We all, as Irish people, had a fascination with John F. Kennedy, I suppose, and the fact that he had the Irish connection and everything like that. There'd be questions.
And he was a great golfer.
And and there'd be questions I'd love to ask him as well, like, down along the line. So, like when we were growing up, there was a picture in everyone's house, and it was John F. Kennedy, it was the Pope, and Mahatma Gandhi, and written underneath it was 3 men of peace. And so they were kind of they were revered, and in that sense. So they were like saints, if you know what I mean.
Fantastic.
And so I suppose, that I suppose now maybe if I had maybe more time to think about it, maybe I could come up with somebody else. But right off the bat, that's who I would pick. Yeah, that'd be great. We'd have some interesting conversations there. So we would, yeah.
All right, so keeping things in groups of 4, if you only had 4 rounds of golf left to play between the United States and Ireland, what would the 4 courses be?
Well, right, so Ballybunion would have to be one. And in the US, of course, it would have to be Pine Valley. And given that I haven't played Augusta yet, I'd probably have to put Augusta in there. Okay. And so that's 2 for America, say 2 for Ireland. I think I'd put in Royal Portrush.
Excellent choices.
Yeah.
Is Tom Watson the best golfer that you've ever played with?
Absolutely.
Tell me,
Absolutely.
we have a couple minutes. I think it's worth just expanding, and maybe we'll cut off the questions. I just would like to hear a little more about how special it is to play with a major champion, Hall of Famer like Tom Watson, not only because I mean, from the outside looking in, he looks like an incredible gentleman and just awesome
Yes.
individual, but one of the best ball strikers to ever walk the face of this earth. What was that like? Tell us, and we'll end with a story. Regale us about Tom Watson a little bit.
Okay. Well, as you said, like living legend, like you feel like you have no right to be here. You have no right to play with somebody as good as this. Like, you're not in the same league in any shape or form, but you're just so happy to be there. And actually, as I said, I was the captain that year, and our president played with us. We played with him and Sandy Tatum. And our president he was playing off 19 at the time, and I was playing off about 9 at the time or whatever. And usually the captain, like he is the main man in the club, and I was the tee off first. But in respect to my elders, I said to the president, "Why don't you lead us out?" And so, he's nervous, and I didn't want him going last, so I thought if he goes first, he might have a better chance. And he whacks it down the middle of the fairway, like about 220 yards, Watson turns to Tatum and he goes, "And that's the 19 handicapper." He goes. And then I had prayed to the Lord that I would be granted my best game. I made all kinds of promises that I would be indebted to him forever and ever and ever and ever again. And he did grant me my wish. And but one lovely experience with them when we were, Tatum he was like 75 at the time, playing off 11 handicap, still striking the ball beautifully, and he's such an interesting character. And when we were playing the fourth hole, as Rob will know, in Ballybunion, and you'll see it as well, there's a par 5, and it's the first par 5 we meet, and they took that hole off us. They won that hole, and Tatum sank a really good putt. And Tom Watson had said to me in the first hole, he said, "Gerard, when you're talking to Tatum, you gotta speak a little louder because he's a bit hard of hearing." And I said, "Well, okay, thank you for that." And as Watson and I were walking off the edge of the green, Tatum and the president and our president are about maybe 30 paces behind, and Watson says, like in a kind of a low voice, "I think we won that one, Tatum." Tatum says from 30 paces behind, "Actually, I won that one, Watson," because he had birdied the hole. But one of the nice things then that happened after that, we went and had dinner in the club, and like I said, people came out and watched. And when Watson had come back in the early years, I was a spectator like everybody else was, and I watched him and couldn't believe what you were seeing. Like, and here I am playing with the guy, like, and now I'm going to have dinner with the guy. And so my son Cormac, who was a really aspiring young golfer at the time, and was fascinated by, the fact that I was up in the club with this legend, and he was learning all about him. And so we were sitting in the club, and I looked over in the corner, and I see my son peeking his head around the corner, sneaking a look, And Tom Watson spotted me. He said, "Who's that?" I said, "Well, that's my son. He's spying on us, He said, "Tell him come in," And so I called Cormac over, and he reluctantly comes over and he sits down. And I said, "Cormac, now, you are sitting here with golf's living legend." I said, "If you want to ask him a question, I'm sure he'll answer it for you." So he looks, and of course, Cormac is like, he knows all about the Tiger Woods, how far they can hit the ball and everything. And he looks at Watson, and he says, "What was your longest drive?" That was the only question he wanted to ask him. So Watson, sensing the question, says, "Let me think about that one out, Cormac. I believe my longest drive was 485 yards. Cormac looks at him in disbelief, and he goes, "There's no man that can hit the ball 485 yards." And he's too polite to kind of say, "Well, that's not true." And Watson, knowing that he's kind of confused about this, he says to him, "Well, let me tell you how it happened, Cormac." He said, "I hit this one drive on this, and it hits the cart path, and it bounces and bounces and bounces, and eventually it comes back to the fairway, and it measured 485 yards. And Cormac goes, "I knew you couldn't hit it as far as that." So that was like, but also during that round, the amount of people that came out and followed us, and the amount of people that he signed autographs to, and the amount of people, like my other daughter Michaela came with us, and she stayed in the whole round. And Cormac left after 9 holes, and he spoke to everyone, all the kids that followed us. He made it his business to talk to them. I thought that was really lovely. He didn't sort of, he left nobody out. I thought that was quite amazing, actually.
Well,
what Gerard's failing to tell you is that those crowds come out every time he plays.
Yeah,
golf.
exactly. They do. Yeah,
They were there to see Jer.
yeah.
They were
They were there to see
Jer.
me. Exactly. Yeah.
last question. I promise. You said that the Lord granted you a great round of golf. What did you shoot with Tom Watson?
Well, we played for 5, 5, and 5. So it was 5 for the front 9, 5 for the back 9, 5 for the overall. So we actually took the money off him on the 15th hole. So we got
Wow.
our 15 quid. We got our 15 quid there and then. So we did, and we were so happy, myself and the president, to take. And I honestly, all I was praying that I wouldn't embarrass myself, but all I was doing was in awe of the guy I was watching, like, because and Tatum swears that Watson's swing hasn't changed in 100 years. Watson says otherwise, but Tatum says he's got the best swing in the business, and he really has. He really has the most beautiful swing.
And Matt, we're gonna get to play the Cashin course at Ballybunion, which I've never played, and Tom Watson is in the process of redesigning it. He's just finished 4 holes.
4 holes, yeah.
And the rest of the course was done by Robert Trent Jones Sr.
Correct.
So
it's gonna be amazing. September can't come.
It's gonna be
fast enough.
It's gonna be a great trip. Well, Jer, my last question, and I hate to ask it. I'm only asking it because Matt didn't ask
Okay.
it. But we ask every single guest the same question. Not who you want to win the presidential election in 2024 in the U.S., but who do you think will be the president of the United States in January of 2025?
Oh wow, that's a tough question. Well, it certainly won't be me anyway. And but I suppose I'll say one thing before I answer that question, right? I think, and I've always said this to a lot of Americans, you have a wonderful country, a fantastic country with fantastic people for the most part, like every other place. And, just like here, sometimes we don't always agree with the politicians that we get, So who did you say, who do I want to see? Is it?
No, who do you think?
Oh, who do I think? Right. So who do I think? I probably edge towards the fact that it might be Joe Biden. I think
50-50 on that answer, and the polls are showing it to be very close in this election anyway. Well, yeah. Gerard,
can I say one more thing before I finish? Just in relation to the U.S. Open, which was unbelievable watching it last night, and I had a thought when I was watching it, and even though we were so disappointed that Rory didn't win, and Bryson did, okay, and at the end of the day, that's golf and what have you. But what was amazing to watch actually was how much Bryson DeChambeau held that trophy in his hand like a baby, and how much he coveted that prize. And you think of the live and what goes on. I really think nothing substitutes those tournaments. Live or nothing. These are just fantastic tournaments, and they really bring out the best in people. I thought the crowd were magnificent, and the energy that was there was absolutely tremendous.
And as much as I know there's a lot of Rory fans that are disappointed, I actually am a big Bryson fan. I've picked him for every major so far, so a third time's a charm. I thought what happened last night was good for the game of golf globally. To me, Bryson has turned a corner in I think people mature, even professionals. There's somebody at 21 years old that they're not at 30. I know I'm a lot different at 42 than I was at 22. And I thought last night was a great display of growing the game of golf and giving the fans an incredible experience. Absolutely. Not only was there great golf played, but to be able to have all those fans, he was signing autographs till 10:30 at night, letting people touch the trophy and take pictures. And frankly, we need, with all the money that's being poured into golf professionally, I think we need more pros giving back to the fans in that way. And whether that's Bryson or whoever wins the next tournament, I think that's good for golf. there's little kids that will remember that and play this game for the rest of their life because of the experience maybe they had at a U.S. Open. So that's what I was most excited about last night.
Jer, thank you so much for coming on the show, for being you, for doing all that you do for the game of golf, and especially for how many Americans you've shown Ireland and Scotland over the years. It's incredible. I know you're about 20 years too young to run for president in the United States this year. You've got
Yeah.
in about 20 years.
I'll be ready. I'll be ready for it. Yeah.
Hey, tell us how people can find Ireland Travel Links and connect with you if they're looking to come.
Okay,
on a golf
so
trip.
we have our website. We www.irelandtravellinks.com. Our email is irelandtravellinks@icloud.com, and just look us up on that and on the web page or whatever. We'd be very happy to help you plan your trip and make it as a memorable experience as we will for you as well, Matt, when you
Looking
come.
forward to it.
And we love having people come over. We love showing off our courses, and we love looking at people like enjoying the experience of golf in Ireland or North Ireland or Scotland, wherever. We just love watching them just going, oh my God, this is just fantastic. That does our heart good.
Wow.
I reminded Matt this morning to bring some rain gear and an extra pair of shoes.
Two pairs of shoes for sure.
That's right.
2 pairs of shoes.
Well, thanks again. And thank you to all of our listeners who continue to tune in. You warm our hearts by listening to this content and sharing it. And we're going to hopefully keep getting better. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Golf and Politics, and on X at Golf Politics Pod. So, Gerard, thank you for your time. And this was really enjoyable, and I cannot wait to see you in September.
And likewise, Matt, thank you so much. And to my good friend Rob there, thank you so much for having me on your wonderful show. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.